Okay, today, boys, we're going to look at our second lesson on the context of wholes. This lesson concerns historical context, and that historical context is actually racism. We're going to examine this theme. It is quite a major theme in the novel, and it is touched on a few times by Stanley in his present-day time, but the real turning point for Greenlake was in the past. So, if you remember, we talked about context, and it can concern social ideas. So you're going to investigate an aspect of the historical context, and that is the social ideas that can reflect culture, people, values, attitudes, and beliefs. Racism concerns values, attitudes, and beliefs. So we're looking at the story of Miss Catherine and Sam as an important backstory in the novel, and what happened to them actually made or shaped the events so that present day is linked very closely to the past story. Okay, this is a very brief overview of the background to the story of Sam and Miss Catherine, set in an earlier time when the laws were different and attitudes were very much less enlightened. The town of Greenlake, that the camp is now based in, was fictional, but racism as described in that novel as part of its late 1800s past is absolutely consistent with the patterns of racial segregation adhered to right across the southern states of America. They were notoriously racist, and Sam's treatment in general was suffered by many black men in America of that time. Louis Sachar's novel Holes has Sam the Onion Man and Miss Catherine subjected to really cruel racism as a result of their feelings for each other. And when they kiss, the citizens turn on them. Sam would have been hanged for that action, but Trout Walker kills him instead. And, of course, we know then Miss Catherine's becomes Kate Barlow. And you may think it's totally reaction over the top or not even seem realistic today, but you need to understand the historical context for this particular event. In Greenlake in the 1800s, it was against the law for a black man to kiss a white woman. And such attitudes and laws were quite common right up until the mid-1900s. It really was quite distinct. Now, I'm using the term blacks here because it's in the historical documents and documentation of that time, which, of course, doesn't fit very easily. So in the description, when I looked up racism myself and the Constitution, although the 13th Amendment of the Constitution freed blacks from slavery in 1865, blacks and whites remained segregated. Some legislation known as the Jim Crow laws were passed in the southern states, and that legalized segregation, though it seemingly went right against the 13th Amendment. And these laws were created to separate black areas for black men and black citizens and white citizens, in public areas, in restaurants, in schools, in hospitals, on buses, everywhere. Now, the name Jim Crow came from a minstrel song. In the southern states, the term minstrel refers to performers, typically white men, who put on black paint on their faces to mimic Afro-Americans. These performers sang and danced and acted in a really happy and simple way, but really what they were doing was putting down the Afro-Americans and making fun of black people. The Jim Crow laws were in effect right up until the 1960s, when they became illegal after the civil rights movements. So it really continued right up almost till present day. So what you're going to do is, what I want you to do is gain a basic understanding of the civil rights movement, the historical antecedents, the key figures and events and issues. You're going to have to do a bit of research to find the relevant information. And then finally, I want you to link something that you found out about these particular things to our novel. And as we're not in class, I've sent an email and allocated you the topics randomly to make sure all the topics are covered, because I really do want all of the topics covered. So where it says, first of all, to begin with the historical context, I want you to look at the civil rights movement and the life of Dr. Martin Luther King. Now, this little video is an animated video. It was made for Martin Luther King Day, and it gives you a really good overview of his life and what he managed to do. I want you to look up whichever topic you have, one of those 12. I've given you some guiding questions that might help you in your research. The sorts of things you want to look at is, what were these events, or who were these people? Who was involved in the events? What did they do that was important? Why were they important? How did they change society? What effect do they have on society around them? And then what connection can you see to the class text wholes? So, as I said, the 2 to 3 minute video, I have checked. Padlet takes videos quite easily and allows you to open them up. But I've tried a few things. 4 minutes, it gets very slow. So I really do think a 2 to 3 minute video giving a summary of your particular topic will be enough. And then we might get a chance to critique a few of those. Each one of you might critique 2 or 3. And then, as always, I want a reflection. So I want you to answer, did you gain a basic understanding, or did you develop a good understanding? Did you link it back, etc.? So you know how to go about that. And I did use the term antecedent. Now, an antecedent is a thing or event that happened or existed before another related event. So in the present day, something might be happening, and it relates back to an important event in the past. So something that's happened in the past, for instance, women gaining the vote. That is a historical antecedent. Nowadays, lots of people have the vote, and women certainly have the vote, but it took the suffragettes and lots of people a lot of time and effort to get that. So an antecedent is an event that happened in the past that has affected the way we live today. Okay, boys, so that's what you have to do for the rest of this lesson, is do your research and come up with the short video and upload it if you can before our next lesson, which is next Monday, I think. Okay, good luck, boys.